Welcome back. Starting back up on our Ranger project here. It's been a few months now, beginning of August. For you guys, you won't notice because it'll just be the next episode. But anyway, it's been a little bit getting it back in the shop. Got the engine taken care of, and as you can see here, got the bed off. We're working on getting the cab off so we can get this engine in the frame and do all the modifications for that. I'll show you the engine over here. So where we left off last time was having to do modifications to the oil pan. You kind of see what I did there. I'll take some better photos, put them in here. But anyway, so we got the Ranger here, got the bed off. Gonna take the cab off, and we'll have just a rolling shell or chassis like we did when we mocked up the engine in the frame. And then we'll get that all bolted in, probably do rear differential, we're putting the 8.8 in, do the drive lines, do the exhaust, fuel system, somewhat there, because I'm going to have to put a fuel pressure regulator in. I'll probably mount up in the fender well, so we won't do that all the way. We'll get some of that stuff figured out, and then we will set the cab back down on the frame and see what clearance issues we have. Only issues we're going to have is somewhere in here, transmission tunnel and stuff like that. So anyway, we will go ahead and start unbolting this. It's 6 bolts, a couple up here, and then inside. Got the interior stripped out, well, the seats and stuff. We're going to be putting Mustang bucket seats in here. Hopefully they fit. So using the motor mounts and transmission crossmember that I already fabbed up, got the engine bolted in there. Quick little note here, how close the steering box is, why we had to take out the alternator. I think a power steering box might be a little bit bigger. Anyway, we'll be making some brackets to put on this side. But back here to the drive shaft. The Mustang has a 2-piece drive shaft, and I'm not exactly sure what you'd call that rubber piece there, but some sort of dampener piece, and it's pretty much that's not a universal joint, that's just a straight shot from the back of the transmission to our carrier bearing, and then we'll make a shaft from the carrier bearing to the differential, but we'll be taking that 7.5 out. We got an 8.8 to put in it, but that's the next step. Right now, gonna try to get this shimmed up so it's level and straight as possible so we don't have any flex in that joint. And gonna take some, you kind of get the idea here, piece of angle iron, cut it, drill some holes, and have another piece come up, and we'll tie into this cross member here, weld that up, and that will locate our carrier bearing. Once we get that done, we'll move to the differential here. I already got it unbolted. We'll be taking that out. I have the 8.8 to go in. Still need to clean that up. Need to get it was from an Explorer, so we need to get the spring pads off of that and stuff like that cleaned up. Probably weld the axle tubes to the differential carrier and then get that in here. Got to do a little bit of fixing on my fuel pump here. Had a bunch of crap in here and it corroded the plastic. I don't know exactly why, but it did. So I got another plug for that. Got a Walbro 255 pump that we'll be putting in that. I also need to fix that filler neck. It is pretty bad. Anyway, we'll get going on that. Get this frame all done up. And then once that's in there pretty solid, we'll start setting the cab on. Got the cab in here, gonna be test fitting it onto the frame, seeing what clearance issues we have here pretty shortly. But I got the axle in, did the welding of the tubes to the housing, and also cut off the old perches. Have the new ones set on there right now, but they're not welded because we're still waiting for the top brackets for the traction bar, which are also going to be the U-bolt mounting brackets to hold the axle on. So I'll take you over and show you what we got going on. So the pinion angle's just a little bit out here, but got it all cleaned up. Did a little bit of welding there with the nickel rod. Some people said these center sections were cast steel. From what I can find out, at least the one I have is cast iron. I don't know if there are some out there that cast steel or not, but this one was cast iron. So I had to go with the nickel rod. Don't quite know what I'm doing with that, but I watched enough YouTube videos, figured it out. It did require some preheat, and just a little word of advice is constantly preheat it. Seemed like after 2 1-inch welds, I mean, had to go back in and preheat some more because it was cooling down. The weld was kind of going to crap. So anyway, got that in there. Got my new perches kind of set on there, but nothing's welded in, nothing's really aligned, just sitting on the axle right now. Cleaned it up, drained out the old fluid, resealed it, redid the brakes. Can't see those because we got wheels on right now. And speaking of wheels, did something different here. I don't know if anyone recognizes those, but those are Crown Vic P71 wheels off of mid-2000s Police Interceptor. They're 17s, and we went with those because the factory 14s would not clear the disc brakes on the new rear axle. And with doing so, we also gained quite a bit of traction because just look at the width difference on that factory Crown Vic. So pretty much what that is the factory was a P205 and the Crown Vic is a P235, so quite a bit wider. And we're not going to be using these tires because they're junk. I'm going to see if I can fit a 245 50 R17 on here. It should, I think the factory ones are 26, and that size, when I looked it up, the 245 50 R17 was about a 27. Shouldn't have any problems clearing that. They fit the front fine with full turn. We don't have any rubbing there. Over here, we really don't have any rubbing there. I mean, it's getting close, but it's not touching, so that's fine. Waiting for some bracketry. We have an alternator relocation bracket. It's going to go right here to set the alternator over because there's no room right there for it. So it's going to go over there. And we have a track bar set up that's going to be incorporated into the top leaf spring bracket here. Come up and run a tube up to a bracket that's welded up here. So we'll have some axle wrap control there. So that's kind of a brief summary of what we did there. Now going over to the cab, got that set in here, and it's pretty well cleaned out. Gonna take that tunnel cover off because honestly we're probably gonna be cutting that whole tunnel out. Who knows? Hopefully that's the only thing. Hopefully, my concern here is this heater box. I mean, it's plastic, it's easy to cut, but I'd rather not cut that. We'll see what we have to run into. Hopefully, I can get an engine hoist, stick through the driver's side window, lift it up, and kind of dangle it over here, because I know there is most likely going to be clearance issues. Worst case scenario, I roll this outside, use my crane to set it on there, but I prefer to do it all in here, just be easier. There's going to be a lot of, I mean, probably set it over there, lower it down, hit something, mark it all up with some paint pen, bring it off, and get out the angle grinder and just start cutting. Got the cab onto the body. It clears pretty well. There's a few minor things I need to trim and fold out of the way. But the main clearance issue that I was concerned about here was this high pressure fuel pump on the back of the engine. And we didn't have to clearance the firewall, but I guess you'd call it like this rain gutter down in front of the windshield before the hood. It gives room for the wiper linkage. Anyway, cut into that, boxed it up, welded it up with some sheet metal there, and then went ahead and painted it black so it just kind of blends in. And then the heater box down here had some interference with the heater hose, so I trimmed that out and then put some plastic paneling in there and glued it in so it's all sealed up again. But otherwise it's fits pretty well. Got plenty of room in front here to do a radiator and intercooler setup and cooling fans. There's plenty of room over here for the exhaust. Won't have any issues with that. And then coming around here, it's a little tight on this side, a little tight where the steering is, and then the brake booster there, but it fits, so that's what counts. You can kind of see that I have a little bit of wiring laying on top. That's because I opened up my Ford Performance Pack kit for it there. You can kind of see the part number, a little blurry maybe, but anyway, it comes with a lot of stuff that I don't need, like factory air intake box, factory intercooler, ducting. Pretty big box. They're like over $1,600, probably like $1,800 for this kit. Kind of some new parts here, throttle pedal, stuff like that. A lot of stuff I already have or is not going to use, but the main thing important is this wiring harness. It is it comes with a custom standalone Ford. I mean, it's actually factory Ford stuff, but it's standalone ECU. Plugs into the factory harness for the Ecoboost and has its own loom with labeling there. You can probably not focus, but anyway, that one's labeled alternator. And it has this nice fuse box here that I just kind of worked up a bracket. Still need to finish that up, but doing a lot of rough mock-up. So a nice relay box. Has this nice bundle of wiring. Got a hot to the battery ground. This one here is actually for cooling fans, so it has its own relay, temperature sensors, all that stuff to take care of the cooling fan, which is pretty nice. That cleans that up. And down underneath there, have a fuel pressure. See if I can get that to focus, maybe. Anyway, that is a Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator I got mounted down there because this does not work with a returnless fuel system. You have to have a regulator. The engine is not does not set up for a return, but for the factory Mustang has like a variable fuel pump, whatever, and this system doesn't work for that. So just use the factory not wiring, but plumbing for return in the tank. Got some fittings, going to be using Earl AN fittings to plumb the whole thing for that. So that should take care of that. And then I'll have to show you the cool remote oil filter bracket that goes on the engine later. But I'm going to be running this remote oil filter on the frame rail because the factory setup interferes with the motor mounts. So we'll get that plumbed in when we get the cab off. But otherwise, right now, just kind of doing some rough layout, waiting on some parts for the exhaust to show up. And I'll pull the cab, make it really easy because I'll be doing the whole exhaust with the cab off, so I can just don't have to have this up on the lift or anything. But anyway, yeah, so wiring doesn't look too bad. Got to move this bracket here, and then this here is going to be attached up there. And then other things I need to do is, that's where the factory battery was, but we're going to put an air box over there because factory Mustang had the air intake coming out here, and then across the front and over there. We don't got room for that. So we're just going to have this come right out, make a box right where the battery tray is. That's going to come out because this has some, you probably can't see it there, but there's a nice air duct, another air duct over here. So it'll be getting a lot of nice cold airflow coming from it. And then over here, we'll mount a battery tray right here. Probably be running just an Optima red top because they're small, and also you don't have to deal with the battery acid there. I mean, they have battery acid in them, but they don't rust stuff out. Like, I mean, that's a factory tray. It's pretty rusty, and then the terminals get all corroded on this regular lead acid battery. So my luck is Optimas are a lot cleaner. Anyway, we'll mount a battery there, run electrical from there. We'll still have to run an electrical wire over there because that is the main power distribution block for the truck. I could, if I was really, I don't know, bored, I guess, I could tear apart that whole harness, run it all the way back over here and mount it up on the driver's side. But that just sounds like a bunch of work, so we'll just be running like probably an 8 gauge or 6 gauge wire all the way over to that side there. And all the engine stuff is just going to hook up to the battery off of these here, so that'll be pretty simple. So we'll have the engine harness, which will be completely separate from the truck harness. That's kind of an update on the truck so far. Got more parts coming, got to order more parts, got to fabricate more stuff. So there's a lot more to do on it. But anyway, hope you're enjoying these videos. I'm enjoying building this truck. Should be pretty fast when we get it all done. See you guys later.